Hello everybody. As you know, my name is Cameron Davis. Okay, sorry. Today we're going to be talking about philosophical ideas, specifically fate and free will. And the reason I want to talk about this today is because it fascinated me for years now. 3 years, and I talked about with my family, shared my belief of like a coexisting fate and free will, how that would work. And even though there may be theories of this already, I just wanted to share my perspective because I think it's pretty cool, and I want you guys to learn this, or I guess have this in your back of the mind as well, so that it might change your perspective or something. So if you're interested, stay tuned, and let's get right into it. Guys, I actually can't make this up. My Premiere crashed twice while I was trying to edit this video, and I couldn't describe whether that was fate or if it was free will. It was literally undescribable. It had to be fate. But I persevered through, and I made this video and edited this video, and now you guys get to watch this video. So please watch it, enjoy it, digest it, because this made me really mad. Okay, here's the video. So this is also a question that I wasn't asked, but I took the initiative to tackle because, again, it really fascinated me. So I guess the order of this conversation is going to go in the way of, or this monologue, I guess, is going to go in the way of tackling what fate and free will are, then how I believe they can coexist, and then rhetorical questions will be like intertwined in the entire conversation, so that you guys could ponder as well, think, and learn about the information that I'm giving you. So the first thing that I want to talk to you guys about is, what is fate and what is free will? To my knowledge, fate is the idea of everything being predetermined, predestined. So me picking up this phone right now was meant to happen since day one. Me blinking at a certain time was meant to happen since day one. Or that this idea where I'm going to be what I want to be, so for example, Prime Minister of Canada or a politician in the future, was going to happen since day one. It was my destiny, and I don't really have to do anything to achieve it. That's my idea of fate. Here's the actual definition of fate. With free will, on the other hand, it kind of proves work equals what you want in life. So I was going to say work equals pleasure because, like, if you put the work in, you'll have happiness. But it also means if you put the work in, you'll achieve your goals, you'll be successful, etc. So I've always been more on the free will side because I feel like fate is just a way to like push away their work ethic and their drive to achieve great things. Because you're putting in the work to get to a certain point in life, right? So I've always thought that free will was the motive because I'd be putting in the work to get the grade I want. I'd be putting in the work to do the thing that I want in the future. I'd be putting in the work and making those building blocks to make it happen. And I don't think that fate is, that thing is predetermined yet. I think that me doing it is what causes those events to happen. It's the idea of cause and effect. Then I came up with the idea that fate and free will could be coexistent. And I was like, this is kind of interesting. What if it is possible that we could merge the idea of fate and free will together? What if it is possible that free will could exist in fate, or because fate really existing in free will wouldn't really make sense. So after that statement, I started thinking of like a hypothetical, completely hypothetical, no research, no evidence, whatever, and that's also what I'm sharing with you guys today. The idea of free will existing in fate. Some people said that it's not possible because fate and free will are both on opposite sides of a spectrum, and you can't push those two things together. But I say, no, you can. And this is the idea that I came up with. So if you think of a tree diagram, you learned that in math class, I'm pretty sure, or whatever, or art. Draw a tree, right? It has different branches, different twigs, different things. And on these twigs, on these branches, or on these leaves, this could relate to different possible outcomes of life. Okay, let me get something. Okay, I got a whiteboard. You guys see this? I'm sitting on my phone. Okay, so say this is the whiteboard, right? This is the whiteboard of life. We either have fate, which means that all these options are already determined, right? So these are done. Or we have free will, which means that the pathway of life is like choices. So you could have choices, and those choices have choices, right? And these choices are happening at fractions of a second, milliseconds, or seconds if you want to be simple, right? And every second there's a different choice. And those outcomes have different outcomes. And those outcomes have different outcomes. And so on and so on. But if those outcomes already have outcomes, right? And we know what like time and stuff that the future's technically already done, right? Because me doing this means that my future self already did that. And it's not like you can't change the future, right? So that means the future is technically predetermined. If we're using like the idea of time travel, whatever. The future is technically predetermined. And there's no way of changing the future because technically you are the future. Oh my god, I sound crazy. Anyways, so we get our time chart back, right? And on this time chart now, we've got the groundbreaking idea of free will existing within fate. And what I mean by this is that, yes, we have our choices in life, but those choices are already predetermined. So those choices, yes, it's like this, but if you zoom in onto the strand, you're getting like this type of choice per second idea, right? And this idea of these things, these choices, already being predetermined means that there is an idea of fate. So me putting this board down, perfect example, technically already happened, but I also made the choice of putting the board down. So it was my choice that made it happen, but my future self already did it, which means that it was always gonna happen. Me sneezing, me blinking, me doing anything that I'm gonna do has already happened, so it's set, it's predetermined. But it also means that, perfect example, the board falling right now. Does it mean that it was always gonna happen? Or does it mean that, like, I don't know, gravity or a slide or dust on the floor is what made it tumble over, or a gust of wind? All my doors are closed. So how do you explain something like that other than it was meant to happen? So I also think that, like, fate is used to describe the undescribable. Yeah? You have no proof of it happening other than the fact that it happened. So you have to say that it was meant to happen. Everything happens for a reason. It comes from the idea of fate. But I don't like that, because I like knowing, I'm a very curious guy, and I like knowing all this stuff. And my curiosity is always gonna trump the other side of my perspective. So knowing what's gonna happen, which is maybe a weakness of mine, but it means that I'll always be curious to know the full outcome of everything. So with the idea of the board, how am I gonna know? What can I do to prove that board was meant to happened to fall in the first place? Other than the fact that it's unprovable. Other than the fact that it happened, sorry. So that's a good question. Please put that in the comments, please and thank you. And in the comments, or find a way to get in touch with me and give me a reason why the board fell, other than the fact that the board fell. How else are you gonna prove it? Like, maybe it's the things that are in my room. Maybe it's the fact that my floor's, like, I don't know. Put what you think in the comments. Another thing I was talking about before was like me blinking or me doing any form of action in the split of a second. How do you prove that other than the fact that you did it as well? Like, was it my subconscious choice to blink? Or was me blinking always meant to happen? Because like, you can't say it was always meant to happen because you did it, right? So it could always be like, well, I'm not going to blink, but that means that my future self did the same thing, which means that was fate, because it was already done, which means it was already predetermined. So I feel like there is fate within free will, or free will within fate, meaning that we do make the choices in those split seconds, but we also have a predestined journey. And I'm not saying like give up on whatever you're doing because you'll make it out eventually. I'm saying that each strand of fate, that's what I was getting at with this board. I'm gonna use a different color too. Where are my pens? Strand of fate isn't necessarily predetermined, or the only strand of fate you can go down. Like, if you have an option of, let's use me for an example. Me making this video, right? If I didn't make this video, or do it at this moment, at this second, I'd be going at a different path, which would result in different outcomes, right? Maybe I'd procrastinate, I'd do my homework instead, do my lifestyle in a different order. But does that mean that eventually I'd cycle back to making the video and then like everything else happens that was meant to happen? Or me doing the video puts me down a different path as well of life? Another rhetorical question. There you have it, everybody. That's my idea of fate and free will. I think that they can coexist no matter what the Atlantic tells me. What is it? Britannic? I don't know. Some, I'll put them there. Tells you. I feel like they can coexist, even though they're oxymorons. And I think that that's what we have to do with everything in life. We have to find ways to compromise. Everything can be a mix of things, and everything can depend on other variables. There's no yes and no. There's no black and white. There's going to be always a mix of answers. And it depends on ethics, it depends on the background, it depends on your own beliefs, your perspectives, and your values. And that's why it's really important to have a full picture of a full story, because if you lose something out, then you're missing out on a whole different way of perceiving the statement. So I do think that there is a compromise between fate and free will, and I explained why in this video. I hope I explained it clearly. I hope I explained it well. And this was all off the top of my head. Like I did some research on like finding articles that I could like counter, but I didn't really look this up or learn this anywhere. Maybe philosophy class I learned it, because we did talk about like fate and free will like once or twice. But I had this idea for like years now, and I guess it's always been working its statement, its thesis in the back of my head. But that's what I thought about. That was this Cam's monologue, this Cam's conversation, and I hope you enjoyed. See you guys next time.